So we will go ahead and get this started. Thank you guys all for joining us for the Cleveland State Community College African American Read-In. We do have some students have already sent me their submissions. They've done some reading. They've given me some photos. And we have some other things that are just a celebration of African American culture. So I really hope you guys enjoy this. If you are a student, I'll say again, just make sure either you change your name so that I can see it on our participant list, or you drop it in chat, name, address, or email address, just to make sure that we get the correct information out to our professor, see if we can get you a little extra credit. Anyone here is welcome to share or welcome to not share, whatever you desire. Like I said, we already have some participants who we've got it queued up and ready to go. If you want to just sit here and listen, that's great. If not, that's great. We'd love to hear from you. And we are actually going to start out with, I say we're going to start out and we already don't want to. There we go. Okay. Would anybody like to share before we get started?
Yes, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming out and to take part in this. This is very important. We've actually registered with the National African American Read-In, so that's really good. And we'll be doing a report card. So your presence is important to us so that we can record that we had good participation again this year for our reading. So I just want to say thank you so much.
It is. And for anybody who needs to leave early, anything comes up, we are recording this right now. So either tomorrow or Monday, when I have a chance to put it up there, we're going to be putting it on YouTube. We're also going to be putting it on our Black History subject guide for the library. So you can find it later if you want. Before we move on to our next pre-recorded video, does anybody have anything they would like to share? Okay. Gonna assume the quiet and the clicking noises I'm hearing means nobody would like to share at the moment. That's fine. So this is Pastor Carlos Bynum performing the iconic I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King Jr. And he did this at the Living God Church. Sorry, I missed a word. Living God Church in Armory, Mississippi.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on an lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote, the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be granted the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuits of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come here today. So we come to cash this check. A check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hollow spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valleys of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass till there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. And those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There would be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something I must say to my people who stand on the warm thresholds which lead into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence again and again. We must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evident by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. We can never be satisfied. When will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies are heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating "for whites only." We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied till justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come here from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will change. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racist, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. And this is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discards of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And this will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims' from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the courageous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, when we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Amazing.
Absolutely. And we really thank Pastor Bynum for allowing us to use that for this event, and for Charlotte for going out and getting that for us. That was, I don't know any better way to start an African American read-in than with some words from Martin Luther King Jr. performed in that way. Yay.
Yeah, it makes you sad, and it makes you wonder what would have happened had he not been assassinated.
Yes. How many more of those kind of performances would we have had? Now we're all coming down from that. Would anyone like to follow that? Does anybody have anything that they would like to share?
That's a pretty tough act to follow, honestly.
Yes, it is.
I did have something. It's something new that I just found this week that I'd like to share, if that's all right, unless someone else has something they'd like to.
I think the floor is yours.
Okay, so this was a piece. It's from a book called Jesus the Disinherited. It's written by Howard Thurman in 1949. And I came across it as I was grading some history papers for the National History Day. This is from a paper written actually by a senior in one of our local high schools. And he wanted to investigate some of the ideology behind civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King, particularly the emphasis on nonviolence. And what he did was he shared some of the ideas and some of the thoughts from this man named Howard Thurman, who actually had visited India in 1935-36 with a small group of other African Americans from the South. Because of his ideas and what he was doing, the success that he was having there, they were trying to figure out, is this something that would be useful for African Americans in the American South and throughout the country? And on this visit, he had this, before he met with Gandhi, he had this visit with a leader of one of the law colleges there, and had this conversation that recorded in the opening of the book. And this is the question that he was posed. What are you doing over here in India? I know what the newspapers say about a pilgrimage of friendship and the rest, but that's not my question. What are you doing over here? This is what I mean. More than 300 years ago, your forefathers were taken from the western coast of Africa as slaves. The people who dealt in the slave traffic were Christians. One of your famous Christian hymn writers, Sir John Newton, made his money from the sale of slaves to the New World. He's the man who wrote How Sweet the Name of Jesus Sounds and Amazing Grace. There may be others, but those are the only ones I know. The name of one of the famous British slave vessels was Jesus. The men who brought the slaves were Christians. Christian ministers, quoting the Christian apostle Paul, gave the sanction of religion to the system of slavery. Some 70 years or more ago, you were freed by a man who was not a professing Christian, but was rather the spearhead of certain political, social, and economic forces, the significance of which he himself did not fully understand. During all the period since then, you've lived in a Christian nation in which you've been segregated, lynched, and burned. Even in the church, I understand, there is segregation. One of my students at your country sent me a clipping telling about a Christian church in which the regular Sunday worship was interrupted so that many could join a mob against one of your fellows. When he had been caught and done to death, they came back to resume their worship of their Christian God. I'm a Hindu. I do not understand. Here you are in my country, standing deep with the Christian faith and tradition. I do not wish to seem rude to you, but sir, I think you're a traitor to all the darker peoples of the earth. I'm wondering what you, an intelligent man, can say in defense of your position. And I imagine that conversation, as it started out, was really difficult and really challenging to a man of faith like Howard Thurman. And he goes on to say, our subsequent conversation lasted for more than 5 hours. The clue to my own discussion with this probing, honest, sympathetic Hindu is found in my interpretation of the meaning of the religion of Jesus. It is a privilege after so long a time to set down what seems to me to be an essentially creative and prognostic interpretation of Jesus as religious subject rather than religious object. It is necessary to examine the religion of Jesus against the background of his own aging people and to inquire into the content of his teaching with reference to the disinherited and the underprivileged. And that's the opening to this book, where he dives back into Christianity and really to the original sources, but also partly to the African American experience, and trying to see how religion and the religion of Christianity, what might it offer in bettering the treatment of African American people in the South. And it's a much longer book, but I thought it was a really interesting opening to that, to talk about some of the tools and some of the ideas that were present, and how even they need to be kind of re-examined and re-explored. And certainly it wasn't intended to be shared as like a criticism or a negation of faith for Christians, but raised some really good questions. Now there's some other interesting historical questions that are raised in this line of questioning that we could talk about for hours in a history class, stuff like that, about the rise of alternative forms of Christianity during the antebellum period and the postbellum period. But it seemed like a really interesting set of questions and ideas that he starts off with, and his ideas, rather than weakening Christianity, it strengthened it and made it more widely accepted, more embracive, and I think truer to its mission in helping the very people it's intended to serve. And he was not a well-known person to me. I've gotten know him a little bit better this past week after reading this paper. It's just a fascinating paper. I thought I need to know more about this. And the text is online. It's free. There's copies available through Amazon, I'm sure, as well. But anyways, thought that was a really interesting insight into some of the ideas and philosophies and theories that helped lay the groundwork for much of the success of the civil rights movement. So just wanted to share that.
And we appreciate that. And I don't know, kind of still on the topic of religion or adjacent to it, if you guys haven't seen the PBS documentary that's been on the last couple of weeks about Black churches by, oh my gosh, Gates, I can't remember his first name right now. I just watched it a couple of days ago, and it is absolutely amazing. So as a segue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's an amazing program. I really enjoyed it.
On the same thing, he did a fantastic series that was also been playing on Sunday mornings, I think, on history of Africa as well. It's really, really good. So I'll go ahead and type the title into the text box. There's some questions about it.
Yes, thank you. Does anybody else like to share before we move on? We have plenty of time. Okay, just a really quick history. We're going to quickly start launching into some of the videos that were pre-recorded by our Cleveland State community. The first one we have is from Deanna, and she is reading from Everything, Everything by Nicola Yoon.
My name is Deanna Belcher. I go by Kashi, and the book that I chose is Everything, Everything by Nicola Yoon. I'm only going to be reading probably the first chapter. It's about 3 pages long. I chose this book because I wanted to read it already, but this seemed like a good chance to, since it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Anyways, jumping right in. The White Room. I've read many more books than you. It doesn't matter how many you've read, I've read more. Believe me, I've had the time. In my white room, against my white walls, on my glistening white bookshelves, book spines provide the only color. The books are all brand new hardcovers, no germy secondhand softcovers for me. They come to me from outside, decontaminated and vacuum sealed in plastic wrap. I would like to see the machine that does this. I imagine each book traveling on a white conveyor belt towards rectangular white stations where robotic arms dust, scrape, spray, and otherwise sterilize it until it's finally deemed clean enough to come to me. When a new book arrives, my first task is to remove the wrapping, a process that involves scissors and more than one broken nail. My second task is to write my name on the inside of the front cover, property of Madeline Whittier. I don't know why I do this. There's no one else here except my mother who never reads, and my nurse Carla who has no time to read because she spends all her time watching me breathe. I rarely have visitors, and there's no one to lend my books to. There's no one who needs reminding that the forgotten book on his or her shelf belongs to me. Reward if found. Check all that apply. This is the section that takes me the longest time, and I vary it with each book. Sometimes the rewards are fanciful. Picnic with me, Madeline, in a pollen-filled field of poppies, lilies, and endless man-on-the-moon marigolds under a clear summer sky. Drink tea with me, Madeline, in a lighthouse in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean in the middle of a hurricane. Snorkel with me, Madeline, off Molokini to spot the Hawaiian state fish. Sometimes the rewards are not so fanciful. A visit with me, Madeline, to a used bookstore. A walk outside with me, Madeline, just down the block and back. A short conversation with me, Madeline, discussing anything you want on my white couch in my white bedroom. And sometimes the reward is just me, Madeline.
All right, and
My
we're
name
gonna.
is Deanna Belcher.
Sorry. There we go. I was trying to get to Charlotte, so we're gonna jump right into Charlotte's pre-recording.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Brand, African American Student Support Specialist here at Cleveland State. Today, my poem would be Hey Black Child by Eugene Perkins. Hey Black Child, do you know who you are, who you really are? Do you know you can be what you want to be if you try to be what you can be? Hey Black Child, do you know where you're going? Where you're really going? Do you know that you can learn what you want to learn if you try to learn what you can learn? Hey Black Child, do you know that you are strong? I mean really strong. Do you know you can do what you want to do if you try to do what you can do? Hey Black Child, be what you can be. Learn what you can learn. Do what you can do. And tomorrow, your nation will be what you want it to be. Hey, Black Child.
Charlotte always does such an amazing job for us. I never can quite get it recited the way she does. Amazing job as always, Charlotte. We've got a space here if anybody would like to share. You don't have to. Absolutely no pressure. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. All right. We will go ahead and move on then to another Cleveland State student. This is Bobby Tate, and she actually decided to recite part of a song titled Higher by Nipsey Hussle for us.
Hi everyone, I am Bobby Tate of Chattanooga, Tennessee, reciting a verse from the song Higher. Particularly, these lyrics from the late artist Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle, birth name, Ermias Joseph Askedon, August 15, 1985 through March 31st, 2019, was a Grammy Award-winning hip-hop artist and mogul from the Crenshaw district of South Central Los Angeles, California, credited by Genius.com. Look, my granny 88, she had my uncle and then a miscarriage back-to-back every year for like 10. Pregnant with my mom's, doctor told her it was slim, was bedrolled for 9 months but gave birth in the end. Pops turned 60, he proud what we done. In one generation he came from Africa young. He said he met my mom's at the Century Club. Los Angeles love, kinda like Hustle and Bug. Monty turned 10, Cross turned 2. Starting to see this life from a bird's view. We the ones that made millions off the curb, fool. And this rap 10 never made nerd moves. I chose these particular lyrics because it is speaking about striving higher, despite life's trials and tribulations, and staying strong in faith. If we as one nation can understand the power of our African American heritage and the struggle we go through to maintain a higher living in the world, we have to go beyond the adversaries and reach our highest potential. Know who you are and understand your history. Know who you are and understand your history. From the very beginning, Nipsey Hussle Ermias spoke on the complications that his grandmother had during her pregnancies. Later, to have her very first daughter, even after the doctors told her it was a slim chance that she would make it, Nipsey's grandmother's faith in God led her to continue on with her pregnancy and gave birth to her daughter, Miss Angelique. Nipsey also speaks about Black love and unity. I believe everyone has the possibility to birth a new beginning in life. Whether man or woman, everyone has a purpose. Thank you, Cleveland State Community College, for listening to me recite the verse from Higher by Nipsey Hussle.
Bobby did such a great job getting us that piece, not only picking something that was really important to her, but also doing an amazing job reciting it, and her rationale for why she really connected with that was just great. So I don't know if Bobby's here with us today, but Bobby, you did an amazing job. We really appreciate it. And next we have Myra, I believe she goes by Myra, reading from Still I Rise by Maya Angelou.
Her name is Almira.
Almira, I'm sorry.
My name is Almira Brand, and I will be reading Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and suns with certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard? 'Cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from the past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear the tide. Leaving behind the nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into the daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Thank you.
I will say we had got some very amazing young ladies do some recitations for us this time. That was another one that was just, yeah, amazing. I watched it the first time and I was like, man, she just puts me to shame. She did such an amazing job on that. The Brand family really stepped up and did a great job for us this time. So hats off to you guys. That was great. All right. Oh. All right. And next we have some photographs that were provided to us from one of our Cleveland State students, Charlie, I hope I'm pronouncing that. I probably butchered it. Has provided us with some family photographs. Here we have a photo in the early 1900s at the Missionary Baptist Conference. Charlie's great-grandmother, Mattie Lee Crawford, is indicated by the mark to the right. She was born on April 8th, 1900, and she passed away at the age of 95. I hope, Carly, okay, thank you for setting me straight on that. I hope I live to 80 or to 95. That's pretty cool. All right, and next we have, these are photos of her grandfather, Marvin Kirkpatrick, to the left, and great-grandfather Melvin Kirkpatrick to the right. And I personally just love the juxtaposition of families serving and providing for all of us. And we've got a World War II soldier, it looks like, and a World War I soldier. So thank you to her family. Okay, we've got, this is a photo of Carly's great aunt Gloria Faye's high school report card from 1940 to 1941. And we see, and it took me a minute to notice this, but this is Maddie Lee Crawford's daughter from our first picture. So I'm kind of hoping in 100 years that somebody's not looking at my report card, because that would be a little embarrassing for me. I appreciate Carly sharing it with us, though. And lastly, and I just found this super, super interesting. This is a photo of the desegregation letter my grandma Josie received for my mother Andrea. This was sent by Cleveland City Schools on May 16th, 1966. Her mother was 8 years old at the time. So I'm going to leave this up for a minute while you guys have a chance to really look at this. Because like I said, I found it fascinating. And Carly, I really do appreciate, I loved your pictures. I really, really appreciate you sharing them with us and sharing your family with us.
Amazing.
Isn't that great? I definitely had a nerd moment when I saw these come in.
Wow.
So much amazing history. All right. Does anybody else, would anybody else like to share? So I'm going to go ahead and skip to the end. We had a few more that we could have used if we had the time. But if you guys enjoyed this, I'm trying to get to our resource list. Come on. Oh, where did it go? I lost it somehow. I do not know what just happened there. Okay. Yep. Don't know what happened, so we're just going to take that off. Okay. Sorry, we made it to the end of the whole thing without me having a serious technical glitch. So I can actually come over here. I appreciate everybody showing up today. All of this stuff that you've seen today, including some of the videos that we didn't quite get to, they are all going to be on the library's Black History Month subject guide under the African American Read-In tab. So you have access to that all year round. Doesn't just have to be, yeah, I can send out the presentation to anybody who would like. Let me, and I'm trying to get to, sorry, like I said, I have two screens so that I can hopefully keep up with things. Okay. So there is, if you enjoyed our African American read-in, there are some places that just do an amazing job. These are some of the ones that I found on YouTube that you can certainly go out and continue to celebrate African American culture. Again, not just in February, not just because it's Black History Month, all year round. Those are some places that you can go and continue to enjoy African American culture. We do appreciate everybody joining us here today. Like I said, all this stuff is going to be going up on our subject guide in the next couple of days. I am here in the library, so if you guys ever have any questions or concerns or want me to do something, add something, whatever, you guys can stop in, or you can email me, or you can call me. And yeah, Charlotte, do you have any, you always speak much more eloquently than I do. Do you want to take us out?
Well, again, I just want to thank everybody who participated and those of you who stopped by to enjoy it. It's just always fun putting these presentations together for the campus. So I'm just grateful that you guys got to take part in it and enjoyed it. And hopefully next year, maybe you guys can be prepared to share something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to do it in person.
Yes, next year we look very much forward to doing this again in person. And yeah, we'll be back next February. So start planning now. And we're really glad that you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Again, I will thank all of our participants, both people who were here with us today, anybody who sent me things beforehand, anyone who spoke today with us. We really appreciate it. It helps us get this out to the Cleveland State community. So thank you guys for hanging in there with us. And I hope you have a great day. Enjoy your Thursday before it starts raining on us on Friday.